To use the signal matrix tool in PCM 600, you will first go over to PCM, double left click on it to open it. Once PCM is opened, you'll go over to your project and expand it until you get to your relay, which you will right click on and select the signal matrix. Once the signal matrix tool is opened, you will see that you have 4 tabs: binary inputs, binary outputs, analog inputs, and Goose Receive. You will not have Goose Receive unless the function block has been added to your application configuration. The signal matrix takes the information listed in the application configuration and organizes it into a spreadsheet-like application, which simplifies your ability to manipulate the binary inputs, binary outputs, analog inputs, and Goose Receive to certain function blocks and function names. We will start off in the binary inputs tab. As you can see at the top of your binary inputs tab, all the physical binary inputs are listed. To the left of your binary inputs tab, you'll see all the function blocks with all the functions with user-defined names, which your physical binary inputs can be connected to. To make a connection, you will go to whichever physical binary input you would like to assign to connect to whichever function block. By finding the function, then once you have found the correct function and the correct physical binary input that you'd like to connect, you will select that box by double left clicking. Now, this physical binary input is connected to this function block and this function. As you can see, when a connection is made for a certain function to a physical binary input, the row of that connected function turns to a light blue color, as you can see here. Now, we will connect a few more physical binary inputs to functions. Once we are done connecting physical binary inputs to their respective functions, we will go up to the toolbar and select the Save button in the toolbar. This must be done anytime you make a change to the signal matrix. Next, we will go over to our relay and right-click and select the application configuration. Then we will select Control F and type in SMBI and select Find. Here you'll see all the function blocks in the application configuration. So now we will go back to our signal matrix and observe that we made changes to the connections in SMBI8. So now we can go back to the application configuration and look for the function block that is SMBI and then look for the instance number 8 and double click on it to select it. Then exit out of the find command. As you can see, the 3 connections that we made in the signal matrix can now be observed in the application configuration. This way we can confirm through the signal matrix and the application configuration that the connections have been made between the physical binary inputs and the functions. You can also disconnect a physical binary input from a function by double left clicking on it. Now you can see that the X has disappeared and the light blue color for that row has disappeared as well, since now the function is not connected to a physical binary input. We can disconnect any of the given connections that we have made. Once we've disconnected our physical binary inputs from our functions, we must go up to the toolbar and select the Save command. Since any time that you make a change to the signal matrix, you must save the changes that you've made. We can now observe in the application configuration that all the physical binary inputs that were once connected to our function block have now been disconnected. Next, we'll move on to the binary outputs tab. In the binary outputs tab, you'll observe that all the physical binary outputs are listed at the top of your signal matrix. To the left of the signal matrix, you'll observe the function blocks with their user-defined names for each function. To make a connection between a physical binary output and a function, you'll go to whichever block aligns to the physical binary output that you would like to connect to whichever function by finding that block and double left clicking until an X appears. When a connection is made for a certain function to a physical binary output, the column of that physical binary output turns to a light blue color, as seen in this example. Now you can observe that this physical binary output is connected to this function of this function block. Now we'll make a couple of more connections between the physical binary outputs and the function block. As you can see, an X appears for each connection, along with a light blue color appearing for each column that is now connected. Once we've made our connections, we'll go up to the toolbar and save the changes that we've made to the signal matrix. Next, we'll go to the application configuration and select Control Find and type in SMBO, and then select Find. Here you'll observe all the signal matrix binary output function blocks in the application configuration. So now we can go back to the signal matrix and observe that we made changes to the connections in SMBO11. As we go back to the application configuration, we can search through the Find window until we find SMBO11. Then select it by double left clicking on it and exiting the Find window. Now, as you can observe, that the three connections that we made, that the three physical binary outputs that we connected to the function block, can now be observed in the application configuration. Now we can go back to the signal matrix. We can observe that we can disconnect a physical binary output from a function as well by going to the connection that we've made, double left clicking over it. Now, as you can observe, the X has disappeared and light blue color of the column has disappeared. This means that now there's no more connection between this physical binary output and the function. We can do this for any connection made. Once we've disconnected all the physical binary outputs from their functions that we'd like, we go up to our save command to save the changes that we've made to the signal matrix. Next, we'll move on to the Analog Inputs tab. As you can observe in the Analog Inputs tab, all the physical analog inputs can be observed at the top of the Analog Inputs tab. To the left of the Analog Inputs tab, you'll observe all the function blocks and the functions with their user-defined names. Also, you can observe that the LDCM cards can also be connected in the Analog Inputs tab. Next, we can make a connection between a physical analog input and a function by going to whichever block we'd like to connect its respective physical analog input to the respective function by double left clicking until an X appears. Now, this means that this physical analog input is connected to this function in this function block. This can be done for any physical analog input that we'd like to connect to any function in the signal matrix. Now, as you can observe, you can connect whichever physical analog input you'd like to whichever function in the Analog Inputs tab by just double left clicking until an X appears. Also, when a connection is made for a certain function to a physical analog input, the role of that connected function turns to a light blue color. Next, once we are done making changes to the Analog Inputs tab, we will go up to the toolbar and select the Save command. Now we will go to our application configuration and select Control F and type into the Find window SMAI and click Find. Now you'll observe all the signal matrix analog inputs in the application configuration. Next, we'll go back to the signal matrix and observe that we made changes to SMAI6. Next, we'll go back to the application configuration and scroll down to see SMAI6, which is the function block that we made connections to. We'll double left click on it to select it and then exit out of the Find window. As you can observe, now the three physical analog inputs have been connected to the function block that we selected. Now we'll go back to the signal matrix. We'll observe that we can also disconnect a physical analog input from a function in the Analog Inputs tab by going to whichever connection that we'd like to disconnect and double left clicking over it. As you can observe, once the X has disappeared and the light blue color has disappeared, the physical analog input is no longer connected to the function. We can disconnect any of the connections that we've made in the signal matrix by just double left clicking over the X until the X has disappeared, stating that now the physical analog input has been disconnected from the function. Then we'll go to the toolbar and select the Save command to save the changes that we've made to the signal matrix. Next, we'll move on to the Goose Receive tab. Next, you'll observe in the Goose Receive tab that you have two relays sending Goose messages. In the left column, only non-interlocking messages are sent. In the right column, only interlocking messages can be sent. All the boxes that are colored pink cannot be connected to. To the left of the Goose Receive tab, you'll observe we have two Goose function blocks, Goose Bin Received and Goose Interlock Receive. We can make a connection between whichever function that we'd like to connect to the relay sending Goose messages by double left clicking until an X appears. And also, the box lights up to a light blue color. This can be done for whichever function that we'd like to connect to whichever relay. Once we're done making connections between the Goose function blocks and the relay sending Goose messages, we'll go up to the toolbar and select the Save command to save the changes that we've made to the Goose Receive tab. Next, we'll go to the application configuration and select Control F and type in Goose and select Find. Here you can observe our two Goose function blocks. By left-clicking on one of them and exiting out of the Find window, you can now observe the function block for our Goose Receive function block. And also, since our two Goose function blocks have been placed next to each other in the application configuration, we can observe both of our Goose function blocks. Although you cannot observe the connections that you've made in the application configuration because the connections made to Goose function blocks is internal. Next, we'll go back to the signal matrix and observe that we can also disconnect a connection between a relay sending Goose messages and the Goose function block by double left-clicking over the connection. Now, the relay sending Goose messages has been disconnected from the Goose function block. This can be done for any connection that we've made to the Goose function block. Now we'll move on to general filters. General filters can be used in the binary inputs, binary outputs, analog inputs, and Goose Receive tabs. To use the general filters command, you go up to your toolbar and select the command that says on general filters for binary inputs. General filters will give you a drop-down menu which gives you the options of X for connected, I for inverted connection, connected, disconnected, and no filter. So first we will select X in the functions to view the physical binary inputs that have a connection to a function block, as you can observe. Next we will select disconnected to view physical binary inputs that are not connected to the function block. Next we will select in the drop-down menu no filter, which you can observe. Now you can see all the physical binary inputs again, because when you select no filter, it doesn't filter out any of the physical binary inputs. Next, if we select the drop-down menu for the physical binary inputs and select X for connected, you will view all the functions that have a connection to a physical binary input. Next, we will select disconnected to view all the functions that are not connected to a physical binary input. Then we'll go back to the drop-down menu and select no filter, in which you'll see that now all the functions can be viewed again because there's no filter on them. Also, you can use the general filter by column or row by going to your toolbar and selecting the command which says on column row filter for binary inputs and left-clicking on it. Now, as you can observe, you will filter your functions and physical binary inputs by one row or column. So if we go to our first physical binary input and select connected, you'll observe that since there's no connection to the first physical binary input to any functions, there are no functions listed. If we go back to our drop-down menu and select no filter, all the functions will now reappear since nothing is being filtered. We can also do this by row by going to our functions and selecting disconnected, which you can observe since all the physical binary inputs have been disconnected from the function, none of the physical binary inputs have been filtered out from the general filter. Now if we go back to our drop-down menu and select no filter, there's no more filter on this row. If we go to another one of our functions and use a drop-down menu and select connected, you'll observe that only one physical binary input has been connected to this function, so only one physical binary input is visible. We'll then go back to the drop-down menu and select no filter, in which all the physical binary inputs will then reappear since there's no longer any filter on them. Another powerful tool of the signal matrix is its ability to be exported to Excel by going up to your toolbar and selecting the command that looks like an Excel spreadsheet and left-clicking on it. You'll observe that the Save window shows up, in which you can select whichever folder that you'd like to save your Excel spreadsheet in which then you give it a name, and select Open and Save. Now, as you can observe, your spreadsheet has been exported to Excel for you to print. We'll exit out of Excel now. And also observe that we can print our signal matrix from PCM 600 by going to File, Print Preview, and then select Connected and Unconnected Signals, and select OK. Here you will observe what you're about to print. If you're satisfied with which would you like to print, you'll then go to your toolbar and select the Print command by left-clicking and selecting Print.